Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Clearly Focused. I am your host and your girl, Kaylee Ely. Sorry for the delay in posting videos, man. I swear to God, I say every time I'm like, okay, I'm going to be back. I'm going to be better. We're going to be regular about this. And then like a crazy busy season happens or something gets thrown off. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, I haven't posted a new episode in a month. So sorry about all of that, but I am here now. I am going to just promise that I'm going to be as regular as I can be with everything. Definitely want to keep having guests on the show. Definitely want to keep trying to keep episodes shorter and more bite-sized for you guys, just because I feel like that's just, at least for me, but maybe what I'm seeing this day and age, it's like it's nicer to just listen to like a 30-minute episode. Feel free to message me, whether it's on my photography page or on the Clearly Focused Instagram, and just tell me like any episode requests that you guys have, but also if you have preferences of having longer episodes versus shorter episodes. I'm all ears. I definitely want to be I'm doing this for you guys anyways, so I want to be doing it in the way that you want to receive it, if that makes sense. With all that being said, I have a guest on the show today. His name is Ron. He and his wife Jess do like social media, ad management, all that kind of stuff for mostly wedding videographers and photographers. So it was a great pleasure to have him on the show today, and we were able to talk and answer a lot of questions. Well, he answered a lot of questions. I asked a lot of questions. So get your notepads ready. It's going to be a good one. And you're going to learn lots of information. Hopefully we break down the idea of social media. We're mostly running ads on Meta, so Instagram and Facebook. We talk about that pretty much the whole time. So hopefully we break it down in a way that is understandable and less intimidating. And of course, if you have any follow-up questions, you know my inbox is always open. I'm sure he would love to receive some messages too. But yeah, before we get into the meat of the episode, you know we have our 30 seconds just to prepare ourselves. So we're going to take 30 seconds right here. Just like I said, get your notebook ready, get in a comfy seat, get your drink, whatever your drink of choice is at the moment. It's like December, so maybe it's a hot chocolate or a peppermint mocha. Maybe you're listening to this while you're editing at night and you need a glass of wine, or if you just got to stay hydrated, just grab your water. Make sure you have everything you need. Take a few moments to just get in the mindset of being a badass business owner, and we'll get into it. Hey, how are you today, everybody? I am glad to be joined by a special guest. His name is Ron, and it is going to be a great conversation. I already know it. We've been chatting a little bit beforehand, and you guys are going to love him. So, Ron, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little about who you are, what you do, all of that good stuff.
Sure. So my name is Ron, like you mentioned, and along with my wife, Jess, we run Ron and Jess Marketing. We specialize in working with specifically wedding photographers and videographers. We offer a variety of done-for-you marketing services, so everything from social media ads and sales funnels to also like done-for-you vendor outreach for people who want to increase referrals, or social media management for people who are looking to save a little bit of time. We also have kind of the educational side of things too. So we do also offer one-on-one coaching and most recently courses for people who are looking to kind of achieve those same results, but would prefer to learn and do it themselves. We started our business in 2017. So as of right now, we're going to be coming up on our 8th year of doing that now already.
That's exciting. Can you believe it's been 8 years?
No, Jess and I were talking about just the other day. Said, it's only a couple more years and we're going to hit our 10-year mark. And we're like, wow, that's a realization there.
Yeah, I know. Even thinking like people ask how long you've been doing it, and you're like, oh, 2017, 2019. You're like, that was a couple years ago. And then you're like, yeah. Wait, the math is not mathing there. That's more than just a couple years.
Yeah, like it's almost 2025 already.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Well, that's really cool. I love that you have a variety, obviously, like you said, of do it yourself and coaching and that kind of stuff, and done for you. So you have a wide plethora of services that people can come to you for, depending on obviously their experience, but like what they're interested in doing, whether they want to do it themselves or just like pass it off and say, I'm done. We're going to be talking a little bit about like ads, which I am very excited about because I have no experience with ads. I did ads probably 2019 when I first started, and I didn't know what I was doing. I think I just pushed a bunch of buttons and said like $5 a day, cool, done. And that was kind of where I left it. So I have lots of questions for you. I'm sure lots of other people are going to have lots of questions, and they're going to enjoy this episode. So for those of us who don't know what ads are or don't know why they could be beneficial for our business, could you give us like a brief little overview explanation of what they are and why we should be using them?
Sure. So social media ads specifically is just any kind of like sponsored content that happens through the platform. So if you're scrolling through Instagram or something like that, you always see those posts that pop up like they're in your feed, or if you're going through stories or something, it'll always say sponsored at the top. Those are all ads, and they are wonderful for business owners in a lot of ways, specifically people who work within the wedding industry. Predominantly because as somebody who deals with a lot of marketing things and like marketing and like lots of different facets, I can say with my whole heart that ads are one of the only things where there's literally kind of just like a button or like a lever that you can push and just get more basically right away. Yeah. And like nothing else really works like that, because if we think about other places in which, you know, say like when referrals come in from other people, like those are great. Like referrals are awesome because they're usually really great couples. Yeah, like the referrals are like the gold standard of leads. But at the same time, you can increase your network and like you can, you know, build relationships with more people, but you can't really just like push a button and be like, give me more. Like, I'd like to have more referrals, please.
So
like, it doesn't happen like that. And it's like the same thing can be said with like, you know, website traffic and SEO and things like that. SEO is great. I love SEO, and there's a lot of things you can do to work on your SEO and bring in more website traffic. Still not really just like a button that you can push and get more of it, because you're fundamentally relying on like other algorithms and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it makes them just very, very, very powerful thing to use.
I never thought about it that way, because even if you just use just social media as like a first example, with reels and with posts and like with your stories and that kind of stuff. I guess stories would probably be the closest thing, because even with posts and reels, like you can say like an advertisement for yourself and say, hey, you should book me for your 2025 wedding. You know, even in your caption, you could say like, visit my website for more info, but it's not just like an easy button that like, number one, gives the other people all the information they need and takes them right where they need to go, but also gets you more leads just like without really having to do any extra work. Like takes the heavy lifting away from you. Yeah, really that's really cool. So what is it that's something that you think would make an ad stand out in today's age? Which we might be like really way jumping ahead, but and I'm sure we might like get to this later too. But if you think I'm like the scroll stopping ads, if you're scrolling on your social media and you want to see something that's going to stop you in your tracks, what are some of the things that you think you should have?
Okay, that is a really good question. So I like to think of this in kind of two different parts. So what gets somebody to actually stop scrolling and look at an ad versus what gets somebody to click and take action or do whatever it is that ad's trying to get them to do. I think they're two pieces of like kind of the same puzzle.
I agree with that. I think that makes sense. Yeah.
So I'll tackle them each a little bit separately. So let's start first with just get somebody to stop scrolling, because that's very hard. That's the biggest hurdle that you have to overcome, is you got to stop someone from scrolling. So a lot of this is psychology and understanding like the user behavior of the platforms. So when you make ads and you put them out there, those ads exist within context, obviously, and the biggest portion of that being not only the platform that you're running your ads on, but what the placement is. So is your ad going to show up in stories? Is it going to show up in the feed? Will it show up in reels? Like what people are doing when they're using each of those different features, even within the same platform and on like the same app, drastically varies. So if you want to get somebody to stop, you first have to think about, well, what is it that they're already doing? And a lot of times then that boils down to, I said, subconscious cues, which would be things like text on the screen, if at all possible, because then you can utilize stop words and various different bits of psychology there. We do obviously work with people specifically in the wedding industry, so 90% of the time, it's wedding images or videography that's being used in some way. So picking images that include the couple and their faces, like ideally closer to the camera if possible. Human faces and certain words and terminology are all things that have like a subconscious draw to humans. And understanding those things and designing your ads with those sorts of things in mind is a big part of what gets people to just stop scrolling and like look at what it is that you have to say. So that's the first part.
Something eye-catching.
And then the second part, it's gotta inherently just catch their eye. So then the messaging and what your actual strategy is, that's the second part then. So if you want somebody to not only stop, but actually click on your ad and take action and do whatever it is that you're trying to get them to do, that's the strategy side of things. What are you asking for? What are you giving in return? What's the underlying like point of what this ad is saying? That plays a huge impact of, well, is somebody going to do that or not?
True. Yeah, and I'm sure like a lot of the, which I guess might probably fall more into the first part, is like the words that you're using to stop and like explain or catch their attention would probably fall more into this first part. But that's, I'm sure, a big part of it too, is just like the call to action, or like what is it that's going to pop out on in their face. Awesome. I feel like if I were going to go try to do an ad right now, I wouldn't even know where to start, which is a good point that you mentioned before. Like there's so many different ways you could do an ad. You could do an ad on stories, you could do an ad on reels, you could do an ad on just on the feed as you're scrolling. So if you were going to go set up an ad right now, where do you even start? Like, how does that even work? And yeah, let's just start there, and then we can dive in deeper.
Okay, cool. Well, first and foremost, I would say, if at all possible, get help. Because there are a lot of things that go into it. And I always like to tell, especially new clients or coaching students, whatever the case may be, that like, remember that like the ad is only part of it. So when you're setting up ads and you're putting things together, think about the rest of the funnel and like how this is going to result in actual wedding bookings for you. But if we narrow that down and we talk about like, okay, just setting up the ads, like how do I do that part? There's an easy way and there's a hard way. They are intended for different things though. Yes. So fundamentally, I'll narrow this down to just Meta being the parent company that owns like Facebook, Instagram, like a bunch of other things. Yeah, because lots of photographers and videographers naturally start by focusing on something like Instagram. So
yeah, I think it's because it's a free platform to use, and so then obviously you can pay for ads on there to make it not free, but it's a widely used platform across like not just us as an industry, but people who are looking for photographers and videographers are going to go to Instagram too. So yeah, that's a good place to start.
Okay, so you've all probably seen the little blue button that pops up that just says boost posts. That is the easiest and simplest way to start running an ad. You can literally just click that button. It'll walk you through some basic information. You don't even really need to create an ad because you've already created the post. The post is then essentially just going to become your ad. And in that sense, it makes it very, very, very simple. The harder way to do that would be doing things through what they call Ads Manager. Ads Manager is a separate platform where entire advertising campaigns are built. Now, there's a reason why you would use either different one, and it predominantly comes down to there are actually different algorithms that operate both of these ads. That like Meta doesn't have just one algorithm. They don't even have just one algorithm for Instagram. They have many, many, many different algorithms for Instagram, and they all do different things. So when you boost a post, there's an algorithm specifically just for that. So if you're going to go that route, it can be a good place to start, but it's important to understand how that algorithm works and what it's intended for. It's mostly short-term promotions. Have like holiday minis coming up or like just a particular special you want to run. It's great for that because it's very simple and it'll get it out there quickly. The downside to it is that it doesn't learn over time. That's not how that algorithm works. So you're basically just pushing that post to a larger percentage of your existing following, and then sometimes some other people too. So I would call boosting it. It's a very good name that they gave it because it's just boosts that post. Yeah. The alternative in doing things through Ads Manager is a lot more complicated and a lot harder, but it's because that algorithm is far more robust. It does learn, it takes feedback and like key point indicators of what's happening in your ad and stuff, and that fuels kind of like the AI that's operating behind everything to learn and get better at doing what it's doing. So it is in a sense, it's like way, way, way more powerful way to do it.
Yeah.
It's also a lot more complicated because when you got to get in there, you really got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I was going to say the complicated equals like more questions that you have to answer usually.
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you say as far as like running the ads, like time running them, if you were to go and set up in the ads, because I'm not sure in the boost if you can control like how long you run it for or not, or maybe you can in both. But if you were going to set up an ad, is there like a time amount that you should run it for to see the best results? Or is it going to kind of vary based on, again, if it's like a holiday mini type versus just like booking for weddings, that's kind of year round?
That's a really good question because there definitely is. When you're boosting a post, you can give it like a total budget and like a number of days. And so knowing that those are for more short-term promotions, I think you could easily run something just for like a week or something like that and expect to see some results from it. Mostly because remembering that that algorithm is first going to be boosting it to like your existing following, which makes it really good for things like minis and like particular specials and stuff, because those are probably repeat customers that have like had sessions with you before. And so just getting that information in front of them and ensuring that they're going to see it is in and of itself like all you really need.
True.
So short-term time frame with that is fine. If you go the other route, you need to think long-term because it does learn. I mean, it's a big part of the power behind it is it's going to learn, but it's going to take time to do that. So for a little bit of kind of like context, when you launch something through Ads Manager, the brand new campaign will first go through an automated approval process from Meta. So once they've approved your ads and they go up and running, the first thing that the algorithm does is it takes your ads and it puts it into something that it refers to as the learning phase. And this is where the algorithm is testing lots of things very quickly to try and gain information about your ad and your audience to like deliver it in the best way possible. That time frame can take anywhere from a few days to upwards of a week. So if you really think about kind of the long-term perspective, it may take you upwards of a week just to get through that initial testing. So it's always a good idea to, if you're utilizing those kinds of ads, design them around a sales funnel or around a strategy that's evergreen, that you could keep doing indefinitely if you really wanted to. So that way, as long as you're getting a really good ROI and the algorithm is learning and it's doing what you want it to do, you just keep doing it. In that sense, there is really no cap. So at a minimum, I would say at least a few weeks, but design it so that there is no maximum.
Yeah, I think that's smart, especially if it's something like just general wedding photography, booking you for, let's say you're setting up something now for the 2025 season, book me for a 2025 wedding, then that would be a good way to go is instead of just boosting a post, because you're thinking about longevity and it's something that you could be doing within the whole year. I could be totally wrong. Maybe you don't want to run it that long, but
you can. We have clients who have been running essentially the same campaigns for like an extremely long period of time. Some of them for years straight they've been going because they just designed it in a way in which it works for them long term. Their ads function very, very well because at this point there's just massive amounts of data that they've built up. So they're very good at delivering and they just don't want to stop really.
Hey, I mean, if it works, it works. Why stop, right?
Exactly.
So what does that look like as far as budget goes? Like, obviously, like you were saying, you could kind of set like a max cost of like how much you want to spend. But is there an average of what you would expect to spend on an ad and all that? Or like, ads on Instagram and Facebook?
Yeah, definitely. So budgetary wise, they're both relatively similar. You can expect to pay a little bit more. So Meta charges you. There are specific ways to change it, but for all intensive purposes, Meta charges you per impression. So each time that your ad is seen. There's a little bit of a difference, and like that cost per impression between Instagram and Facebook because advertiser competition and all that stuff comes into it. But as far as like an actual budget, if you're boosting a post, usually spending about $100 in a week is a good place to start because you're just boosting a post. You want to see kind of what you get out of it. So figure about $100 and you'll probably be okay. For running ads long term through Ads Manager, set a daily budget of about $15 a day. For most places in the United States and Canada, like all things considered, that becomes a pretty good place to start. And then from there, you'll want to scale that either higher or lower over time once your funnel is really well developed and you have an idea of all of your numbers based on whether or not you want things to happen faster or slower. But start at about $15 a day.
Okay, I think that's both a good starting point for both of those. I think it could be a little maybe scary, especially for someone who might be like in the beginning stages of their business to think about investing $100 a week for businesses or for their business. But maybe would you want to share or could you share? I don't know if it's like a contractual thing that you can't share. But if you want to share any like ROIs that your return on investments that your clients have seen that can kind of justify or like not scare some of the people, like, yeah, it might be $100 a week for a whole month, but like you're going to get it back. Here's some examples.
Yeah, definitely. So I won't name names and things like that, obviously.
No, yeah.
But I would say that if you can stay in like a 10 to 1 range for your ROI, you're doing pretty good. So like if you spent $400 a month on ad spend and you booked even one wedding and say that was like a $4,000 wedding, or even a couple weddings, or one even more expensive wedding but every other month or something like that, 10 to 1 is a pretty good range to be in. I have seen much higher than that. We have clients that have hit like 20 or 25 to 1 where they were putting in maybe $1,000 a month into their marketing and they were making $20,000 or $25,000 a month off of that. There are differences in strategies in terms of like how quickly that ROI can happen, because obviously if you're focused on things that are quick ROI, like I don't have a lot of money in the marketing budget, I don't just want to keep putting ad spend into something like into something like this, I need it to start coming back. There's totally ways to do it. Just focus on those kinds of like quick ROI strategies. If you're in the situation where maybe you do have a little bit more wiggle room in your marketing budget, or you're okay with things taking a little bit longer, it just opens up more options, because now there's long-term strategies that you can take as well. But for any of them, I would say 10 to 20 to 1 is just like a really great range to be in.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. How do you think that small business owners, when they're setting up their ads, can maximize their, like, get the most out of what they're spending? Is there certain ways to set up, like certain settings or preferences, like while you're setting up the ad, to make sure that they get the most out of it?
So settings and preferences for the ads themselves is something that changes all the time. So
I'm sure.
like I look at Ads Manager data daily, every single day. And I swear most days that I get in there, something has moved or something is different.
Damn. Yeah,
I know, right? It's like they're doing it on purpose just to make it harder. But the good news is that I would say that what we see making the biggest impact in people's ROI for the money that they're spending on ads is not really so much the specific settings and preferences. Because for one thing, you can get help with that. Reach out to people like Jess and I or something like that, and like have somebody set up those things for you that's already very familiar with like currently the way that it operates, not based on something outdated from forever ago, or like a course that was designed 2 or 3 years ago or something like that. Like this is the way it currently operates. That's helpful. If you can't do that, you're not in a position to do that, and you're definitely going to be doing things on your own, then focus on things from a big perspective. That's really going to help get you a really good ROI faster, because Jess and I are big proponents of the idea that as wonderful as social media ads are, or any ads really in general, that all they're really going to do is draw in attention for you. That's what you're doing. Like you're buying exposure. Once you have that, you have to have the rest of a sales funnel of how is this exposure being nurtured into trust, and then a relationship, and then like eventually a booking. As much as I would love to say that there's this perfect ad format that you could put out there, you put it out there, couples will see it and they'll just book you. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't work like that.
Like you're asking a bit too much of the ad, like to do that. So I think that just taking a step back when you first get started and understanding that that's how it works, and developing a strategy for yourself that keeps all of that in mind, when you come to your ads then, and like you're setting up even just basic settings, you're going to have a lot more success with it, because you have all of the rest of the stuff that you need in place to go with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never even thought about the fact of like, cool, you want to start running ads, but are you equipped to handle what happens if the ads actually start working? You want to make sure you have a good workflow, you have a good funnel, you have, whether it's automations in place, and you have your information ready to go to give the people who are coming at you asking for information and prices and services and all that kind of stuff. You don't want to just, especially if you are in the beginning stages of setting up your business, it might be a good way in theory to get that business going, but make sure you can handle what's going to happen with bringing in more people.
Yeah. One of the best ways of putting it that I ever heard, and I can't for the life of me remember, apologies to the person who said it because I can't remember where it came from, but it was a business coach of some sort, and this person was talking about running ads, and he was like, running ads is kind of like putting gas to the fire. It's going to make something happen, But sometimes when you throw gas on a fire, all you have is a bigger fire. Like,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily what you always want.
It's not always a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
is
just
such
be
a good
prepared.
analogy. Yeah. Yeah. Make sure you have like a fire blanket or a big bucket of water.
Yeah.
So you can, like, cool it down a little bit.
Just in case. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned like when you want to go set up an ad, like go to someone who, like you guys, who knows what they're doing and has done it before. So are there other like tools and resources for someone when setting up an ad, which I know you mentioned you guys have DFY and DIY stuff done for, that you guys can give out. So yeah, like what kinds of things does that look like? And if you know of any other things you can do out there that might not just come from you guys, what would that be like to help people out who are just starting?
So in terms of the ads themselves, there's not a lot of external tools that you need for that, fortunately. Meta, and especially if you're running things through Business Manager, is very, very good at providing lots and lots of tools. It's part of what can make it difficult and confusing is that there's a lot of stuff in there. But like the metrics and the data and the information that you're going to get just from the actual platform itself is amazing. In my opinion, that's all you really need. However, there are things for like the latter part of the funnel that can be very, very helpful. Because again, it's like, where does this traffic go? What happens afterwards? And then from there, automation tools and things like that are great. I love utilizing things like Zapier because it connects anything and everything. It does connect directly to Ads Manager. So if you're running ads that are intended to capture leads and, you know, Meta has their own built-in native forms for that that you can use. You can connect directly to those forms and do anything that you want with that information right as it comes in. So if you're a HoneyBook user, you can use it to just bring those contacts directly into HoneyBook and then start doing things from there. If you just want immediate notifications because like you're going to text your leads and like you want to start building a relationship with these couples like right away and you want to know about that immediately, you can utilize things like Zapier to be sending you text messages with information so that you can immediately start interacting with these couples. So utilizing things like that for the latter part of the funnel can be really helpful. I would say don't worry about any sort of like extra expense or extra things for the front side of things with the ads because Meta will give you everything you need there.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, we like when that happens because there's so many, especially when you're first starting out in business, you start to realize how many like extra fees and extra also purchases you have to make when you're trying to do something. You're like, oh, I thought it would be easy to just set this up and be done. And no, it's not. I feel like there's always a catch-22.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So thinking about the time of year that we're in, it is the beginning of December, which for wedding industry is usually like we call it engagement season because a lot of engagements happen around the holidays between everyone being together with family for Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and that kind of stuff, or they're going on vacation. So engagement season is around the corner. If a wedding photographer or videographer was going to set up an ad to, I guess, like start putting their name out there in front of people who are getting engaged, like what would you say would be either like the first steps or just some things to consider kind of setting up for the new year to try to drum up some business and capture like those newly engaged couples' attention?
Awesome. Yes, now is a super exciting time of year because there's so much happening. I like to approach this in two different ways depending on, so like if it's a client of ours, I would ask them, you know, do you want to focus on like short-term wins or like bookings that are going to come in sooner rather than later? Or do you really want to set yourself up for more long-term success? Because right now, as you mentioned in this time period, we have like this massive influx of like newly engaged couples that are coming into the market. But we also have all these couples too that if we look at wedding photography or even videography, because that's one of the things that usually gets pushed back further and further and booked closer to wedding. Yeah. Like it creates almost these like two different populations of couples that are out there right now. It's like newly engaged, probably hasn't really started on anything, or already engaged, but still kind of like in the works of planning everything. Yeah. So when you're thinking about how best to utilize ads during like this time of year specifically, I would say pick one of those groups first. Like who do you want to focus on? Because if you want to focus on the newly engaged people and really just make them aware of who you are, you know, maybe get them to follow you or something because like you are pretty good about kind of like, you know, showcasing a little bit of your personality and stuff like that through Instagram. And that's how you connect with people. Great. Boosting posts or running ads that are just to get profile views is a really great way to go because
Okay.
It's a very low ask for the couples when they see an
I was gonna
ad
say
like that.
too, is that like a low cost for the photographer too? So, or like lower cost?
Yeah, in that you could set like a lower budget. You know, if you wanted to run like we call them like followers campaigns. If you wanted to run a followers campaign and only spend like $5 a day or something like that on it, you could. Or just boost posts with like a lower budget. Because the only real point is just to keep getting a little bit of exposure with these new people to get them to follow you, because they're going to see more of your organic content that way.
Yeah.
Like, new followers, generally speaking, see a much higher percentage of the things that you post or things that you've recently posted, as opposed to people who have followed you for a really long time. So that's a great way to capitalize on those people and start building trust and like reputation there. If you don't want to do that and you're like, no, I want to focus on booking more weddings quickly, how about this other population of couples over here that maybe they've been engaged for a little while, they might have a venue already, maybe they've put down a deposit, so they have a date. Thank you. Finally, there's a defined date for me to work with here,
right.
like that population of couples.
Yeah.
Then focus on more of the lead generation approaches, things that are more geared towards like the actual service and like not just getting them to follow you. Those sorts of ads are naturally going to get clicked on a bit more by those couples because the call to action is stronger. It more resonates with like their current state of mind, because if they don't have these things booked yet and they have been engaged for a little while, they know that they kind of need to get on that. And keeping kind of that in mind before you even decide what your ad's going to say will go a long way in helping you reach the right people.
That's a good point. I never even thought about taking it two directions, to be like, do I just want to get more of like the cold leads and get people just like eyes on my stuff and get myself introduced to them, or do I want to get more like hot leads that are like, I'm ready to book, let's get the ball rolling type thing? Yeah. So is there a way to track this stuff, like all of your leads and, you know, maybe how many people are seeing or clicking on your ad as it goes? Is it through, I'm assuming it's through the ads manager in Facebook?
Yeah. A lot of that initially I would just do through ads manager in Facebook. So like for clients that were running ads for them, they get data reports once a month and all that kind of stuff that includes a lot of those key metrics, you know, like how many people saw your ad, how many people are clicking on your ads, which ones are performing better than others, like those sorts of things. So same thing, like that initial incoming sort of like ad level data, Meta will give you all of that. It's more of a matter of understanding the settings and how to filter down into like only the things that you actually
like
care
what
about.
Does this actually mean? Yeah, I think that would be the
get
most
rid of the
overwhelming part,
metrics
is
that
like,
don't matter.
what are all these numbers? I don't understand.
So usually narrowing down data is the goal with that. For the latter parts of your funnel, this is where things like tools like Zapier and stuff can be very helpful. I like, again, like for clients that we're running ads for them or coaching students when I'm teaching them, I usually show them like, integrate like your ads with Zapier and then just have like a separate Google sheet. Even if you're also having your leads brought into, you know, Honeybook or something like that, also have like a Google sheet that's like specifically just that your leads that are coming from this campaign and like these ads. It gives you just like a nice, easy place to look at everyone in just one spot. You can tell Zapier which pieces of specific information you put in there. So timestamp is usually a good one. So it's like a time and date of like when these leads are coming in. That makes it really easy then. So especially if you're running a more long-term campaign because you're wanting it to learn and optimize over time. Compare like this month versus last month. And that usually becomes one of the better ways to track that. Staying on top of that Google Sheet and making sure you're also marking in there like, I booked this one, this one's pending. That's important too, and often kind of slips through the cracks sometimes. But that's what gives you a really clear picture then of like start to finish, like how is your funnel operating.
Well, and you have like you said, you have it all in one spot, like the information that you actually care about, especially if like your business partner, whether that's your spouse or, you know, even if your tax lady's just like, is this worth it? You know what I mean? You have like a sheet to pull out and reference and say, look at all the leads I've gotten, look at all like the ones that have just inquired, the ones that have inquired and booked, like it's worth it. So in the end, I've spent like $1,000 this quarter on ads, but I booked $10,000. So like, yeah, it's worth it. Like just from these ads. So and instead of having to go to the Meta thing and filter out all that, I could, that would be the hardest part for me, is just, again, looking at all those numbers and being like, oh, what does this mean? I don't understand. So what are some of the mistakes that you see when people are like setting up ads? Could be common, easy to avoid, or maybe it's just like they don't know what they're doing. Everyone's just setting it up willy-nilly and this is what we want to avoid.
I'd say there's two main ones that I'll hit on. These are both things
Okay.
that I see relatively frequently. So
Okay.
one of them is not having enough of an understanding of the tool to be able to design their ads for the correct placements. Because all the various different ad placements, again, if we say just Instagram specifically, like there's like 9 or 10 different ad placements for Instagram between stories and feed and reels and the explore pages and like you name it. And all of these different ad placements are, for the most part, formatted differently. And so having enough of an understanding of how to utilize Ad Manager to know that these ads that I'm designing are cropped this way and formatted like this because they're for these placements right here. And these ones are for these placements over here. Those become like really obvious ones when you see them because they're ones where it's like, it's just an image or like it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
And it's usually because that ad was probably designed for a different placement. It's just the person doesn't realize that it's also running these other places too. So
That makes
that's
sense.
a big one that we see.
Gotta watch out for that.
Yeah, watch out for that. And then the second one is more, again, like the strategy side of things. Jess and I see ads float across our feed and stuff all the time that I can tell from an outside perspective. I practically guarantee you that like it's not working and it's not getting this person an ROI, but usually because like there's not enough of a strategy behind it. If you click on the ad, you know, it might just take you to a form or something, but there's no real reason to fill that out, or like there's no kind of understanding of the motivations of like why somebody would do these things. And so there's not really been any attention paid to like developing those things and like putting them there. That's a really big mistake that we see too. I call this the book me because approach, where somebody puts an ad out there and they're like, book me. You're like, why?
Why?
I don't know,
Yeah.
because I'm a great photographer. That's fine. There's a lot of other great photographers too. Why should I book you? Tell me.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that.
That's so being clear on your messaging and like making sure that whatever ad you're putting out there is not just like generic and bold. That if you replace your name with my name, it's the same,
Yeah.
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. What about like if you have limited budget, but you're wanting to maximize, especially like kind of what we just talked about, like you can keep going with that, like the turn of the year, trying to bring in new couples or newly engaged couples to book you for the 2025 or even into the 2026 season. Do you have any tips for someone who's like on a limited budget?
If you're on a limited budget, then there's kind of, honestly, I think that you could operate with a limited budget and go either one of those two approaches that we talked about before. If you have an extremely limited budget and you really only want to put out just like whatever you can, like honestly, the minimum is $1 a day. So like if you had even just like a dollar and you're
$1
like,
a day.
I want to do something. What do I do with this? You could use that towards like a follower campaign just to increase your following. Is it going to generate like a lot of new followers for you every single day? No, not necessarily. Like you're probably going to be a couple on one day and then nothing for a couple days and something else, but you are fundamentally getting exposure. So you are putting those dollars to work, or you know, euros or whatever the case may be, but you're putting your money there to work, and then you can rely on things like the organic side of stuff that does not necessarily require ad spend. So then you can go in there and like, you know, showcase your personality, be posting on stories and stuff, like doing the things that yes do require time of you, but don't necessarily require money up front. So you could approach it that way. Or if you had slightly more to work with than that, but maybe not necessarily a lot, you could still go the other approach and be running things through Ads Manager, but then the strategy becomes very important. Don't utilize any sort of long-term sort of like branding-based strategies because that's going to take a really long time. Branding-based approaches can work really, really well, but they're going to take a long time. Like fundamentally, the ad is just educating people on who you are. You're going to wait on the couple to take action and actually reach out then when they're ready to book. No one really knows when that's going to be. It's just whenever they reach that point. So refrain from approaches like that and focus on things that are more like immediate take action. You know, do this now and I'll give you this. This ends like at this day. Things that entice people to do something like right now. And then that will help you get that ROI faster.
So I just thought of two questions. Does that mean, would you encourage it for like a sale, even like a newly engaged couples through now and February or whatever? If you're going to book me between now and February for the year of 2025, you get $100 off. And it's like that could be a good ad to run.
You could if you were going to run it for that long. And again, that kind of just boils down to like, would you boost this as a post or would you run this through Ads Manager? For that specific kind of an approach, I think that that's something that if you knew that a large percentage of your following you had acquired relatively recently, and these were all couples that probably still needed your service in some way, then you could probably still get away with boosting that as a post. Because again, that is the majority of people who are going to see that first is like your existing following. If you have a following that you know has been around for quite some time and that a lot of these people are probably already married and like that's, you know, wedding photography or videography is specifically what you're trying to push and it's not really going to be relevant to them, then you're probably going to have to go the ads route so that you know you're reaching more new people. If you're running ads through Ads Manager, you can actually create an audience in there of your existing Instagram following, and then in your targeting you can exclude that and say do not show my ads to people who already follow me because I specifically want to reach new people, and that's a better way to kind of maximize your money too by not spending money to talk to people who already know who you are.
Already know who you are. Yeah, that's a good point, especially because I feel like a lot of like personally like my followers, if it were something that I was going to do, they're all married, they have babies, they're not going to be booking weddings, but I didn't know that was a setting that you can control is to like kind of hide it from your current followers and like only showcase it to the new followers. So that's a good, excellent point. You also said something about like organic content. So what about like how can, as a small business owner, like how can you kind of align your ads with your organic content to make sure that they're like still seamless and you present like a universal front on your page?
Yes, and I love this approach. I really do, because I think sometimes you get people who are out there and they're just like, it's organic everything. And then there's like these other people on the other side that it's like, no, you have to run ads. And it's like, you know, these things can coexist together and actually work really well. Yeah, when they work together.
Yes.
One of the best ways to do that is to focus on those follower campaigns, because you can utilize some of those tools where you're like excluding existing following and like, I definitely want to get new people. You can operate with as little as $1 a day if you want, because you're not really trying to generate leads directly. You're just trying to get more exposure for your page, and then pair that with the stuff that you're posting organically. I think that you probably need to wait to bring like a lot of like your personality and stuff like that into it until, not that you don't want to put that in the ads at all, it's just remember like the ads, like they serve a specific role. You got to stop people from scrolling. There's a subconscious cue. Like you got to get somebody like to do something. Like there's a job that ad's doing, you know? And if once it's done that and it's got somebody over to your page, once they arrive there, if then they're hit with like your personality and your work and who you are, and they resonate with that because they're like, yes, okay, this person, this is what I'm talking about.
I like them.
You know? Then they'll follow you because they're resonating like with you. And then now you took kind of both of these things and allowed them to do what they're intended to do. And then it worked really well.
Yeah, I know. It's like they're talking to each other. Like you said, they're working together and increasing hopefully more like better results than just doing one or the other. Because let's be real, like only doing organic content can be exhausting because it's like you said, it takes a lot of time. It might not take a lot of money, but it's a lot of stuff that you have to do. You have to like show up, show your personality. That means stories, that means reels, that means like email blasts that you have to like put your inflection in, and you can't just be like, here are Christmas minis, book me. Like you, that's exhausting. But then at the same time, like just doing paid ads almost feels like removed. Like you don't feel as like involved in it, and people can just kind of be like, oh, she's just running a sale, like running an ad, and she's not actually caring. So it's like being able to do both would be like the Goldilocks zone.
Exactly. That's actually one of the reasons why Jess and I originally started like expanding out into various other services, because we did start originally with ads. So like when we first started our business, all of our clients were wanting us to run ads for them in some way, shape, or form. And a big motivator for us for like expanding out into other things is because it was very clear to us that like, while ads could exist on their own in isolation, they function so much better if all these other things are working in unison and like as part of like a whole plan. And as you pointed out very astutely, like obviously organic content is like very, very time consuming. So that's why we started introducing things like social media management and stuff like that to try and lighten the load of that a little bit, so that even if you gotta be, in stories showing your personality and stuff, you don't also have to be over here like creating reels and putting stuff together, because like someone can help you with those things.
I always say do the things that only you can do, and then let somebody else do the things that anybody can do. So that's how I say is a good rule of thumb for outsourcing. If you can, just somebody else can do that, let them have it. Especially if you don't enjoy it, It's it takes the fun out of it.
Yeah, Jess refers to it as the zone of genius. Stay inside your zone of genius. And let there are other things that are dependent, but find people who that is their zone of genius. I'm a huge data and numbers nerd. I love staring at Ads Manager all day because like it's just kind of how my brain works. A lot of the people that I work with, like it's not as though they can't. They're smart people. They just don't want to, because they're like, why would I want to do that?
My brain is pulled in other directions. Like if you showed me that data, I would be like, I mean, if I sat here and focused on it and like I would be able to figure it out. Like I know I'm not dumb, but it's just that I'm over here being like, I need to edit this gallery and like make sure I followed up with this client, and I need to go, and I'm like, I can't just sit here and designate time to do this. So yeah, like you said, just having someone else that's their zone of genius, and you just stay in your, it's like almost like stay in your lane, but like that sounds more like, I don't know, mean, but
like build your team.
I like that. yeah, zone of genius. I like that. Are you seeing any trends in the like ad world right now that we should be aware of, or maybe things that are dying off that you're like, I don't really see this anymore, so don't do that?
Yeah. So in terms of things that are becoming maybe not necessarily more prevalent, but just more and more necessary, is the harmony between like running ads and like your organic side of things.
Okay.
I think that when we first got started, it was a little bit easier just to like develop a really great Instagram account with just like your work and be like, look at all of these really great weddings that I've shot. And like, it could almost feel like a little bit impersonal in some ways for people. And a lot of times that was by design, of people that were just like, I'm not that type of person. Like, I don't want to put like a lot of my personality into it. And it didn't seem to matter quite as much. Like you could run ads over here separately and everything would do great. Now you can still do that, but it's much, much harder to get results that way. It operates so much better if when people are seeing your ads and they're clicking on things and they're also visiting your account, that they're really getting a sense of like who you are as a person and like what it would be like to have you there at their wedding. Then like that just makes a much, much larger difference, I think, than what it used to.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something I think is going to keep happening. In terms of something that's completely died off, I don't know that it's completely died off, but offering like just like a piece of information in exchange for someone's contact information. We don't really quite see that as much as we used to.
Like, give me your email and I'll send you a freebie type thing?
Yeah, so like before, like probably like 2017, 2018, it would be like, get my like engagement session like planning list or something like that. Or like, my top 15 like favorite venues in like whatever city that you're in. You used to see a lot more things like that, and you don't really so much anymore. And I think it's because it's not as effective as what it used to be. Mostly just because it's really, really, really hard. You could still do it. Don't get me wrong. It could still be done.
Right.
It's just you really got to come up with something that the couple, when they're looking at it, they're not just like, well, I could Google search this in 2 seconds. Like why?
Yeah.
Why would I give you my contact
information
information
my email
for something?
to get spam, basically.
Yeah, like people, people's contact information has value and they're aware of that. So to them, I think it just feels like an uneven trade. They're like, I'm trading you something that you don't have and that you can't go get anywhere else. It's my contact information. And what you're trying to give me in exchange for that is something that I know I can just go get somewhere else. So it becomes less effective.
That makes sense. Well, I have 2 questions for you to end our episode. The first one is, if someone were to outsource ads and they, like, let's say they were coming to you to do that, what does that process look like as far as, I mean, obviously, like, they put in the inquiry, and they find someone, but like, what does that look like as far as like, even like budgeting? Like, do they pay you after? Do they pay you during? How long do you typically work with people? All that kind of stuff. And I know it's going to vary based on like if they work with you versus someone else, but generally speaking.
Right. Okay. So for us, for ads specifically, people can acquire just either Instagram through like our website. We get phone calls booked like from all kinds of different places. We have booking pages where people can just pick out a time that works for them. They'll usually be talking to me. Sometimes Jess, but 9 times out of 10, it's me that they're talking to when we first get started. And it'll be
You're the data
like
guy.
Yeah, I'm the data guy. So when they're setting up a time to chat, they're setting up a time to have like either a Zoom chat or like a phone call with me. Those usually last like 20 or 30 minutes, and it's just to like answer their questions or sometimes help them to figure things out, because we do get lots of people who book times to chat and they're like, Ron, I don't really know what I want, but I know that what I have is not working. So like help me figure this out.
Right. Yeah.
So it's that initial kind of like figuring out like can we help them? Could we, is running ads or one of these other services something that would work well for them? If for the sake of argument it lands that like, yes, running ads, like this is what we want to do. Jess and I don't ask that people sign on for like big long-term like annual commitments or anything, just because to be honest, most people don't need it. Like we work with some larger studios that do lots and lots of weddings, but most of the people we work with, they have like a range of like this many to this many weddings is kind of what I want, which means getting booked up is like a real possibility. So with all of these things in mind, I don't see any point in people signing on for like a whole year at a time. So what we do is we ask that all new clients sign on for at least an initial 90 days, because it will take some time. We're going to have to build some things. It's got to get going. They're going to have to start getting a return on it. So 90 days. Then after that, it's strictly month to month. So if they still have space in their schedule and they still want to keep booking things, like cool, we can keep going. If they are booked up but want to work on something else, because they're like, great, I got that squared away. I'd like to work on this over here, get this up. Great. It just adds a lot of flexibility in how we work with them. And then in terms of payment, Jess and I operate on a monthly retainer. That retainer is based on like whatever service it is that person wants. There's not really anything on and above that other than like ad spend. All of our clients just pay for their own ad spend because Meta or TikTok or whoever just like bills them directly for that.
Yeah, cool. I didn't know if it was like a percentage or like a just at the end of the month based off how performances was or something like that. So that's always good to know. My last question is advice, whether it's for someone who is maybe still unsure about investing in ads, or like a piece of advice you wish everyone knew before doing ads or about doing ads. Yeah, like kind of like last parting advice.
Last parting advice, I would say, if at all possible, invest in help as quickly as you possibly can, because Meta will make it very, very easy for you to run ads, but they're at a certain sense, you can end up just kind of like donating money to Meta. Yeah. Because Meta wants you to run ads. They don't want to do that.
They already have enough money.
And like we don't want to do that.
They're not invested in this business like you would be if you hired someone. Yeah.
Exactly. So if at all possible, even if it's just to schedule like one coaching call or something like that. Just I have bundles of coaching calls like that I recommend people start with, because that gives us enough time for them to really learn and implement something. But if you couldn't do that and you were just like, I just need some basics because I want to start doing this on my own and I don't want to waste my own time and money, then start with at the very least that. Because while that's going to add a little bit more expense in the beginning, it's also going to position you a lot better in the long run, because you're going to get an ROI. You're going to get an ROI faster. The money that you are putting out is going to come back to you faster. And I think that if you just try and go it on your own, or if you're just trying to like Google search your way through things, like, can you figure out what you're doing? Of course. Everybody's out there, is motivated, at least I hope so, like motivated to be running their business and getting results. And so it's like, can you do that? Yes, but it's a cost benefit thing. How long is that going to take? And not just in the wasted ad spend that didn't get you results, but also in your time too. Because all the time that you're spending doing that outside of your zone of genius is time that you're not spent doing something else. So if at all possible, get help.
I like that piece of advice. It kind of circles back to what we were just saying. Like, if somebody else can do it, let them do it.
Yeah.
If they're good at it, if that's their thing, then that's what I always say. Just that way you even if it's not more time you could be doing in your business stuff, like, oh, I could be, instead of figuring out how to run this ad, I could be editing. It's like, well, I could be spending time with family or reading a book or going on vacation. Like, it's like you're getting so much time back and mental space, Like
Yes.
you got more room in your brain to focus on other things instead of also trying to figure out how to set up an ad.
Yes, exactly. And even if you wanted to know that, even if you were just like, no, I want to know how to run ads because like I want to be good at this, all the more reason to get help, because then you'll learn what's currently effective, what's currently happening right now, and it'll happen for you then a lot faster.
Right. Yeah. And which is, we all like more of a quicker, what is it? A result, I guess is a good word. Yeah. We all like to see that we're instantaneous. We'd rather see it quicker than just like, we're not very patient these days. Oh my gosh. Well, I learned a lot. I hope everybody else that's listening learned a lot. I'm sure they did. But where can people find you? Like website, social media, all that. And then if you're working on anything fun you want to share about, then let us know, whether that's work related or not.
Yeah, so you can find us. Our website is just ronandjustmarketing.com. So if you want to learn more about our services, or if you're interested in like scheduling a time to chat like we talked about, you can do all of that there. Following us on social media is always a great way to do it. We're probably most active on Instagram as opposed to anywhere else, but we're just Ron and Jess basically anywhere. So honestly, if you just Google search Ron and Jess, like a bunch of our stuff starts coming up then. Yeah.
Hey, in terms we like the consistency.
Yes. As far as things that are going on right now, Jess and I are still navigating our new kittens, which is fun. They're not brand new anymore in that we've had them for a little while, but their birthday is going to be coming up before too long because they were born tail end of last year, so they're just under a year old. Aww. Which is fun. It was interesting getting two of them at the same time because they love each other and they love playing together, but they're also like little partners in crime too. So you'll see them like running through the house doing stuff. Like, you guys look like you're plotting something. Feel like I should be concerned.
They definitely are. Can't trust cats. I have two of them.
No, they'll work together too. Like one of us will get distracted and the other one will go do something. It's like, you planned this. You coordinated. This is a coordinated thing.
It's so true. It's literally the cat energy. It's very fun. It keeps you on your toes.
It does. They very much keep us on our toes.
That's fun. It makes life interesting. Well, that's exciting. Okay, cool. Well, like I said, I learned a lot. So thank you again for taking the time out of your day to talk with us and teach us about a lot of stuff. And I hope you have a good rest of your holiday season.
Awesome.
Holiday season.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I definitely appreciate you having me on. It was really great.